Welcome to Edge of Intelligence. I'm your host, Carl Owen, fractional CIO and AI strategy advisor at Protelligent. Today we have Wade Smith, CEO of EnergyPrint, a leader in cloud-based energy management. Wade is a professional engineer and former train controls executive who has led multiple tech-enabled transformations in building management systems, HVAC controls, and smart energy services. Under his leadership, EnergyPrint has helped customers save an average of 12.7% on energy cost, an ROI that often pays for itself in just 10 days, scaled utility benchmarking across 6,800 buildings, and launched an AI-powered inVoyage platform to extract utility billing data from at Six Sigma precision. Wade, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Wade, you've come from engineering controls at Train to software-enabled energy services at EnergyPrint. Can you talk us through that transition and what sparked it?
Well, yeah. I retired and I got bored. And somewhere along the line, I started to take on clients, right? And somewhere along the line, I got a call from my old boss at the train company where I started my career. And I owe this gentleman a lot. Was a great mentor and a great boss. And he has a 7-figure investment in this company, EnergyPrint. And he felt it could use a spark. And I have, in my career, 2 times working for this gentleman, done turnaround assignments and startups and finance for some businesses, et cetera. And so I think it was a good fit. It's also, this business is located close to where I live. And so I got intrigued and ended up as the CEO through a series of steps, which we will skip. But, I'm doing it because I enjoy it. And I'm motivated and fascinated by this business and its capabilities and, where it's headed, where it can go. And so it's a lot of fun, basically, for me. And so that's what we're doing. It's a hoot.
That's awesome. If it's fun, it's not really a job.
Well, when you get into retirement, you reflect upon the things that you most enjoyed in your life. And then you say, in retirement, I want to do the things that I most enjoy in my life. And being involved in this kind of a business and seeing the eyeballs light up with the employees and the smiles come and success, it's positive feedback for me, and that's what I thrive on. So there we go.
Good. Well, EnergyPrint focuses on delivering measurable energy savings via data analytics and cloud tools. What's the core problem you're solving?
We are helping our clients who are building owners and operators to reduce their energy footprint. In fact, this is our mission statement: reduce your energy footprint, and we actually write it in small letters right above our logo. So it's right out in front of everybody. What we do to help them reduce their energy footprint is all about data and analysis of the data and comparisons, benchmarking, and the like. But we have a lot of partners who, without whom, we couldn't really reduce building energy use, because an accounting system is very important, and essentially that's what we're providing, is an accounting system. You can't track your progress. You can't manage what you don't measure, basically.
Right.
And so we provide our client with an easy button to recover and present and compare in useful ways a lot of data that are off those utility bills. And so you said it earlier that our average customer in the second year working with us saves 12.7%. So that's an average over 800 buildings that we have tracked for 3 years or more. So we've tracked a lot more buildings than the 6,800, but these are the ones that are qualified to be in our database, and they save 12.7%. So the EPA, we send basically any of our clients that want us to, we send their data also to the EPA portfolio manager, and they have 400,000 buildings. And so they also publish this statistic, which is varies from year to year, but it's about 7 or 8% savings in the second year of that is the average of their 400,000 buildings that are being monitored. We are just about double that savings. And so we ask our customers to evaluate us against our competitors based on how effective we have been with others and propose to be effective with them to reduce their energy use. This is a cash generating business. We don't consume more cash than we deliver, right? So it's a little odd if you're in the purchasing department. You probably don't want to buy your analytic services from the lowest cost provider. You want to buy them from the provider that delivers the greatest benefit, because the greatest benefit, I mean, it's right. So everybody understands that. So we talk about this 12.7% number quite a bit. It's real. The beauty of the utility meter and the data that comes from it, it's correct and it's comprehensive, and it absolutely doesn't misrepresent the truth. So, if you were paying $100,000 a year last year and this year you paid 80, you saved 20 grand. And if somebody makes a claim that they could save you 20 grand, our company is here to say, if it doesn't show up on the utility bill, it didn't happen. So we're bringing truth to the whole subject and doing it in a useful way. We obviously are helping our clients find the right partners that can help them drive their energy costs down. And obviously we are also making a lot of recommendations. Did you put in LED lighting? Are you looking at solar? Does it qualify for incentives? Are you paying taxes or not paying taxes? Does that matter to you? Are you doing thermal storage? Are you working on off-peak rates, putting more of your load off-peak? What does that mean? Well, the customer doesn't really know because this isn't their area of expertise. And so we have that background, but we're not in the business of selling efficiency upgrades. We're in the business of accounting for it and advising and helping our customers achieve, success. Sorry, that's a long.
No problem. That's a great story there. You've benchmarked thousands of buildings with real results. What outcomes, ROI, emissions, ESG compliance do your clients value most?
It's an interesting question because we don't really survey our customers to understand what is the most important benefit that motivates them. But I think at the lowest level or least impactful level, it's compliance with regulations. And a lot of buildings are becoming regulated in their efficiency, and this is BTUs, thousands of BTUs per square foot per year. And New York City, for example, had all the larger buildings report in, and then they took the 25%. So if you were at the bottom 25%, they said you needed to improve to at least that level, and if you don't, you're paying a fine. So it's one thing to measure performance and to report it and to publish it. It's another thing for regulators to use that information to try and force building owners to improve their efficiency. And we're probably in a 10-year period here where that transition is happening. Of course, it happens in some places more than others. So compliance is forced, basically. in those locations. The second one is investor appeal. You got an investment community now who are considering the social footprint of the companies they invest in and preferring to invest in businesses that are also scoring well on ESG. You mentioned ESG, which is efficiency and social and governance. We don't do anything with social and governance, but we do a lot, right, with the efficiency side.
Right.
So the expectation of this investment community is not that you just report this data, which is the first step, but they are expecting to see improvement, goal setting and improvements year after year. So if it works for you as a company, it means that there's more demand for your shares, and more demand means a higher share price, and that's what it's all about after all. So that's a benefit. Another one is just pure altruism. People care about the environment. They care about climate change and carbon dioxide emissions, 40% of which come from buildings. And so it's a big deal. And then the last one, but also the one that is, I think, kind of the gatekeeper, is cash flow. So when you improve efficiency, you generate cash, you don't consume cash. And the sad truth is that the energy cost in a business, the amount that they pay out, is not material to their income statement. In other words, if they were focusing their management's attention on things that matter, they would never get around to energy efficiency. So even though it generates positive cash flow, there are other things that they could do in their business to make larger improvements in their cash flow. So does energy always make the cut? Oftentimes it doesn't. And that's why regulations are kicking in. But cash flow is not trivial. I mean, I have a business doing let me see if I can think of a customer that we're chasing right now, does $16 billion a year in revenue and pays $100 million a year in utility expense. And we're having trouble getting them to engage, but there's just no doubt that we could take that $100 million down to 80 or something less than 80. And they know it's just a question of priorities. So cash flow is always part of their, I think if you are talking to someone about improving their efficiency and it's going to be cash flow negative, they're probably not going to do it. So we live in this cash flow positive world, and we're fighting for the priority of our prospective customers to actually engage.
Can you tell us about your go-to-market model, working through HVAC dealers, utilities, or direct to the enterprise?
Yeah, we have basically two paths to the marketplace. One is to go through a dealer. They're offering our services to their customers wrapped in an efficiency improvement proposal. So they have an idea to upgrade the economizer systems at the school district. It's a common need. It's a common problem, is bad economizer controls or broken economizer controls. So they have a proposal to do that has a 1-year payback. They wrap us into the proposal so that we're monitoring the utility bills showing that savings, and we're behaving as an independent third party, objective, like an accounting firm. So we get, nominally half of our business that way through HVAC service companies in one form or another. And then the other half we go direct. I just, in prep for this discussion, I just wrote down 34% of our direct sales are to schools, 24% to hospitals, 17% to office buildings, 10% to retail, 6% to hospitality. So we have a diverse customer base, different building uses, different types of energy consuming systems, and we have experience in all of these areas and others. And so we're sharing that experience with our customer, and we're arranging conversations with partners that can, implement these ideas.
Makes sense. What kind of feedback keeps you up at night? Are competitors, regulation, or tech shifts most top of mind?
Uh, well, I don't worry too much about competitors because we compete, we try to set the competitive agenda around who provides the greatest benefit, and we do that, and so I don't worry too much about competitors or regulators who actually help our business, as you might imagine. The thing that I stay up at night about is communication, getting the word out, uh, getting people to understand that we're generating cash flow, not consuming cash, and that this is something that they ought to do. Even it's even positive cash flow if they consider the cost of people that they assign to this, responsibility. Um, it's not it's not a huge business enhancement to them from a cash standpoint, but it does help them to project an image to their investment community, to their customers, that is favorable and responsible. And it's a good thing, and it's like a charity, but it's a charity that gives you money instead of you giving it. So that's another way to think of it. Yeah, to get that to be understood is a battle. It's a battle. So
I can see that. Your recent launch of inVoyage tackles OCR challenges and utility invoices. Tell us what led to you building that.
yeah, so this is a 15-year-old company. When we started, we did everything manually, and that you know there was email, so but it's still messaging back and forth, hand typing data into the database, and that has a cost. And it has another problem in that it's very lumpy because when you take on a new client, you've got 2 years of history. Suddenly, the data team is busier than one-arm paper hangers, right? And then so you add somebody, and then they have a capacity to do X number of invoices in a day, or in a week, or in a month. They're an employee, so you need to take on. So your capacity jumps because it's a full employee or part time, but it's still a big. So you don't have the ability to uh, flex up and down your capacity as your customer demand flexes up and down. Um, and so it begs for outsourcing, to be truthful. And so you can make it a variable expense. So one of the changes that I made when I came into the company was this one, and we started buying the data from the outside rather than doing it inside. The problem with that is that the data that we bought was had a lot of errors and data, and the supplier explained to us that they weren't in the utility data business. They were in the utility data automation business, and they could automate and lower our cost. But if their automation doesn't work, then they just you asked for that data, they just didn't give it to you. or they gave you data that was incorrect. And so they also didn't tell you which data is incorrect and which data was missing. And so our data team had to review everything that came from this supplier. And we looked up from the table and realized we hadn't reduced our staffing and our data team. We were just paying an outside supplier to do something that we were previously doing in-house. By the way, we weren't happy with our own error rate doing jobs manually. So then we found a different vendor that was an improvement, but it didn't really solve the problem. So in 2023, AI came along, and our very smart software guys were able to automate this back office process. So that's an AI-enabled software system. We started using it in October of 2023, and people, your audience by now, know enough about AI to appreciate that these AI-driven software capabilities, they get smarter and smarter and better as you keep modifying them to eliminate errors, right? And so it was the middle or even the third quarter of 2024, about a year ago, that we began offering the use of this software to our customers. We were using it internally by that time for 9 or 10 months already, and since then, it just keeps getting better and better and better. Last month, we had a first pass yield of 99.45%. So what that means to the audience is that we got the correct data 99.45% of the time on the first pass. So what do we do with the errors? Well, the good news is the software identifies the errors and the gaps. That's a big step. And then secondly, we then manually correct those errors. So the data that we're giving to our customer, we certainly intend that it's 100% correct. What we then do is we modify the extraction layer of our process to eliminate that error, and that enhancement increases our first pass yield the next month. And so it keeps increasing. We'd like to get the 99.999 Six Sigma, right? We'd like to get the Six Sigma quality. We're not there yet, but we will get there eventually. And I'm not exactly sure how close we are. We're somewhere probably 99.8 or 99.9% right now accurate. So if you have data that's accurate, it goes quick. It's automated. It's accurate. You trust it. That which is identified as errors, you fix. It saves, if you're on the receiving end of this data, it saves you a lot of time and effort and money. And if you're producing analysis that's founded, by the way, the first supplier that we outsourced to, their error rate was in excess of 20%.
Wow.
Okay. Well,
that's not going to get it.
No. And so if they either accept that and turn a blind eye and nobody notices. If they're in a regulatory environment, they're just trying to satisfy a regulator. The data is correct. Who the hell knows? So it fulfills the market demand. But if now the regulators are starting to say, look, that data has to be audited by your financial audit team. So you have audited financial statements. Guess what? This is going to be part of that audit. And so that data's got to be right. And so there's a mad scramble now to improve, right, the data integrity, and we're sort of on the leading edge of it. So
that's a big deal. Data is a challenge everywhere you go. That's a big deal. The level of accuracy you're getting is very impressive.
Yes.
Well, your clients ingest data from 3,000 plus utility providers with disparate billing formats. How do you guys handle that? Is that a manual process? I mean, I assume you have AI tools or tools in place to address that.
Yeah, part of this system we call inVoyage.ai. InVoyage, of course, implies that we're traveling, we're on a trip, and we changed the spelling of voyage to invoice. It's an invoice voyage, right? So it's invoice. Okay, so anyway, the first step of that process is to fetch the utility invoice image. And most of the time we can do that with the utility. Sometimes the utility is incapable of doing that. There's a paper bill someplace or a PDF. We can work with PDFs. We can work with a cell phone image of the invoice. We can work with any image actually of the invoice. So in some cases, it's possible to bring over a PDF, and there's utilities that correctly read a PDF that are very, very accurate. So we love that. And if not, we use optical character recognition software, which you alluded to. This is what our supplier uses. They're still in business and they're still using OCR. And OCR has a lot of trouble with utility invoices because they change from month to month. So when the invoice image changes, information moves around, or it's not in the same place, or there's an added paragraph that says you need to do the following by such and such a date, or else we're going to impose this penalty. I mean, somebody's reading that bill, they've got to pick that up. And so if they're just reading the data that they've been reading in the past months, they're not a human being. They don't read the paragraph that the utility put in there, assuming that a human being was going to read it. So we um, wrap AI with the OCR. We don't just extract the data that our analysis requires. We extract everything off the utility bill, and then we ask the customer, what do you want? Sometimes they want more, sometimes they want less of the data. But whatever they want, we're now extracting their requirements from that utility invoice. And let's say we have one utility, one set of invoices, and we got 5 clients. We may have 5 different extraction algorithms because we got 5 different clients, we do it 5 different ways. So that flexibility is there in inVoyage, something our competitors don't do. They extract a certain amount of data, and you get it all. It's up to you to pick out what you want. That isn't our the last step in our process, by the way, is to take the data that we've extracted and the invoice image, and we deliver them to our customer. And you know, we try and accommodate. In fact, we don't try. We absolutely accommodate the customer's data format requirements. Most customers take an API message, API, and we're happy to accommodate that. And again, if we got 100 customers, we have 100 different communication schemes, and we maintain all that. We don't want our customer to have to accommodate our data standard. We accommodate theirs.
Well, you mentioned that you give the customer what they want. Does the customer always know what they're looking for, or sometimes you have to coach them through that?
Yeah, well, we have a default. This is so there's another step in the process, which is not in the back office, but our database, right, feeds our utility analytics package. So we offer the utility analytics package to our customer, or just the raw data they can put into their own analytics package. And many times that's exactly what they want to do. So we're just trying to accommodate whatever. We have our own, I'll call it communication standard, that, feeds into our database. And so if a customer wants to implement that, it's in the public domain. So we share that with them, and then they implement that. And of course, we work with it all the time, so it works out great. But more often than not, there's differences. And
you've alluded to this a little bit, but as your organization has grown, what kinds of challenges have come up around data consistency, quality assurance, or integration?
Well, I think the story that I told earlier about we started out manual and then outsourced, and now we've come back to automated systems. All of that was driven to improve accuracy. That was our number one objective. But the second thing was to speed processing. Our customers would like to have the utility data the day after the utility bill publishes. And 99.5% of the time, that's what we do. We give it to them the next day. So it's more accurate, it's faster. This is sort of an internal need, but it makes us scalable as a company, because if I get a customer that's got 100,000 invoices and they want us to process them, and they want us to process 24 months of history, that's 24,000 invoices. We could do that. For many years, no way that we could do that. We'd have to hire a bunch of people. So scalability is a big benefit for us and for our larger clients. So we can take on and do very quickly and process their data, handle, their large, like the example that I used a little earlier of a company that pays $100 million in utility bills. They process 12,000 utility bills every month.
Good Lord.
So, if they come to us and they want 24 months of history, that's a heavy load. And years ago, when we were doing that manually, I would not have called on them. Too big. But today, just right. So
yeah, in the past that would have been a massive undertaking. Now with all the automation, it certainly makes it possible.
Right.
Well, beyond invoice extraction, what other redundant manual tasks that are your customers doing?
Yeah. Well, and are we doing?
Yes.
I would say the paradigm, the norm for prospective customers is that they have to fill the data gaps and the data errors, and that's a manual process. So from our standpoint, there's a percentage of the utility invoices that we haven't tackled with our automation system yet. We haven't finished, right? And so you start with the utilities that have the largest number of utility invoices, and you work your way down. And you get to, at some point, you say, I've got 2 invoices from this utility and they're paper. And we've been doing it that way for 5 years. You know what? We're going to keep doing it because the software team has got bigger fish to fry than dealing with that. So we still have some manual work that's involved. And then there's, I'll call it semi-automatic, where some steps in this process can be automated, but some steps can't. So one of the hobgoblins here is two-factor authentication, right? So we want this data, but we're not the customer. We don't own the data. So the customer gives us a letter of authorization. We submit it to the utility, and now they want two-factor authorization, but the 6-digit code that they send out goes to the customer, not to us. And if we can talk the customer into giving us that right, then we can automate it. If we can't, we're on the phone futzing around with two-factor authentication, and we haven't found the best right solution to that yet. We should, we will, but we haven't done it. So there's still some manual effort involved in what we're doing. We also have customers who rely on a paper invoice that they get in the mail, and their utility doesn't give them an option. And so what we ask them to do is to take a cell phone photograph of the invoice and send it to us. And so it's a manual process, and we're emailing back and forth and doing that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's some of that. And we also wrestle with multiple invoices. So sometimes the utility will send one document that has 10 accounts on it. And we have to teach the OCR to deal with that. And we do that. So that's a common practice, but you know, this utility sends 10 invoices to building A and 3 invoices to building B, and so it's a little tricky, and it's a battle, you know. So we have to battle those and wrestle them to the ground.
Yeah, I bet. Well, how do you manage building metadata, control systems, sensor data, and utility streams? Any tech debt or API frailties that you see out there?
Well, we don't have any issues with API either receiving or sending data, so no problems there. I don't really see this as an issue, if you know what I mean. Now you asked about sensors, and that takes us into a different world. In everything that we've talked about, it's about the utility invoice. It's a monthly affair. Some utility meters can be read in 15-minute intervals, and the utility sells typically interval data. And so if the customer wants us to capture interval data, we can do that. We can't do it in real time if it's the utility meter, because they aren't processing that utility data in real time. They're gathering it up and then they're batch processing it. And so they'll give you 15-minute data, but they won't give it to you in real time. There is, however, possible to ghost meter. So you can set a meter right next to the utility meter. This is a meter that's owned by the building, and you can read it anytime you want. So there is a demand for real-time data. Sensors measuring temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide levels, space pressure, all kinds of things that are offering real-time data. And so the trick is to generate software, cloud-based software that uses the real-time data and does something with it that matters to people. And so I'd say most of our customers are intimidated and a little overwhelmed by the utility data and the comparisons that we give them. To step into real time is a big step, right, for them. And so, yeah, real time is in our future. It's coming. The trick is to keep it low cost. And building management system, will give you real-time data, no doubt about it. The problem with building management systems is you don't have enough smart people to manage the systems that are installed out there today. And so lots of alarms and problems that are enunciated in those systems completely overlooked. I went into one of our customers who, as you know, there's this little beeping that's going on in the background in the property manager's office. So what is that? He says, "Oh, those are the alarms coming in." I said, "How many alarms do you get in a day?" He says, "Over 100." I said, "Who's reading the alarms?" "Nobody. Can't do it. I got a store to run." I'm sorry, I can't
Yeah,
do it. So here's a great application for AI, and
absolutely.
that's without doubt. I mean, you have to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to understand that that's where the real time systems are going to go. And we are we are already a player in real time systems in some alpha sites. We got 4 customers, and I don't know, probably 70 or 80 buildings that we're monitoring right now. But it's just like with our inVoyage system. We want to we we want to make sure that the product is right for the market before we bring it to market. So that's where we're
Makes
going.
absolute sense. From your vantage point, how has the market's view on utility intelligence evolved in recent years?
Utility intelligence, meaning doing something with the data.
Yes.
Well, so I think a couple of things come to mind. The first is benchmarking the ordinances that are impacting a lot of buildings around the country. Require public disclosure of their utility use, and that disclosure goes into a database, and those databases are organized to benchmark. So the feedback, this also comes from the EPA portfolio manager. The feedback that you get is your score from 0 to 100. If your score 100, you have the most efficient building of your type in the country. And if you're 0, you have the least efficient building. So I think this is creating an awareness, well, unquestionably, creating an awareness by the building owners and operators of how they rank, so to speak. If they rank 30th percentile, and somebody comes to them and says, "I can get you to the 70th percentile," that has some credibility because 70% is not an unreasonable expectation. So I think it brings credibility to the efficiency proposals that are being made. That's a very useful application of benchmarking. It also enables regulators to draw a line and say, you got to be above this level, which is interesting. And that's happening. We're all familiar with the federal standards automotive miles per gallon requirements, right? And that's how long has that been going on? Since what, the 1970s? And that's 50 years of regulatory ratcheting. Okay, well, the efficiency of equipment that goes into buildings has also been ratcheted, but new equipment goes into new buildings. Most of our buildings are not new, they're old, and they have old systems in them, and they're relatively inefficient. So those buildings have never been regulated. The equipment that's in them has never been subject to regulation. And so there's a lot of opportunity to improve. And so the government, unless there's a sudden change relative to the last 50 years, that's how long I've been in this industry is, 50 years. I'm telling you, it's never backed up. It's stabilized from time to time, and then it ratchets again, and it ratchets again. And that's going to happen in buildings now. And so, yeah, this is a really important subject. You're going to have to keep track of this stuff, and the buildings that are going to have to comply will be smaller and smaller and smaller, and the amount of data that's involved gets larger and larger and larger, and you need software to manage it. And this is the business that we're in.
Right.
Makes sense.
Right. Well, what kinds of, you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but what kinds of new capabilities or expectations are you seeing from your clients, particularly as sustainability and ESG become more central?
Yeah. I would say at the top of the list is data accuracy. The last thing these companies want to be labeled is that they are greenwashing. In other words, they're misrepresenting or exaggerating the efficiency gains that they have been making or haven't been making, or the amount of carbon that they're emitting. Nobody wants to be labeled with this, and the auditor, is in a situation where they've got to be honest, right, with the data. And if the data is wrong, it's just not a good thing for the customer. So I think that's at the top of the list. Right along with that is people are setting goals. I mean, they want to be at a certain emissions level in 2030 and 2050, net zero. I like to say we have net zero pricing because we generate cash, we don't consume it. Yeah, so people are expecting that in the ESG report that a lot of public companies now attach to it their annual report. They have an ESG report. I think I saw Targets the other day, it was 200 pages long.
Wow.
So, people want to see progress. And so it's not just about reporting and compliance with regulations, it's about making improvements. And the good news is that these improvements will generate cash, not consume it. And so that's, what's not to like. So I think that's the other thing is steady and perpetual improvement.
Well, as you think about scaling your impact, whether in volume or reach, what internal capacities become most important to strengthen?
Internal capacities. We're going to use AI a lot. We've let the people know on our data team that if they can't use AI, there's a grim future for what they're doing. They're going to have to. I mean, let's look back. They learned how to use a computer for their word processing. Used to type it on a typewriter. Then it became a word processor. Then it became a computer. Why do you need that computer? Well, because it costs less than a word processor. So I'm going to word process on the computer. Oh my gosh. So you're going to have all this capacity sitting at your desk? What are you going to do with it? Well, we're going to do spreadsheets, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Well, IT department doesn't like that. All of a sudden, they got computers everywhere, Oh my God, tear my hair out. Well, I'm sorry, we made the transition, right, to computers. Then we made the transition to cell phones. Then we made the transition to smart cell phones. Voice recognition, we're using it all the time. I mean, life goes on. Google search engine, which now has several computers, right? Was greatly lamented in my household because my kids didn't need to use the encyclopedia anymore. That was one problem. The second problem was I couldn't stretch the truth to them because they would test it while we're in the conversation. They'll Google it and they'll say, "No, Dad, that's not correct." And so I'm sorry, it cramps my style a little bit as a father. But now we have AI, and AI is to the next generation what Google was to my kids, right? And it'll become ubiquitous, used everywhere all the time. It so dramatically changes your productivity in whatever it is that you do that you can't live without it. And if you're going to drag your feet like I did with email when email became popular, I sent the emails to my secretary, and she printed them out and put them in my in basket because I could deal with the in basket. So if you're going to drag your feet, then you're going to end up like me as a retired consultant, wishing that you could go back to work.
Yeah,
So
you're either going to live with it or die by it. I think it's going to be the case. I like to say it's AI assisted though, because I still
it's
think,
great,
and
very
you've
true,
you've talked about this quite a bit, that
very true.
there is a lot of human in the loop
Yeah,
required in your world. So
yeah,
if they envision it that way, that this is something to assist
yeah,
people.
yeah. So I kick around with my old buddies, right? And we grew up in the heating air conditioning industry, and what we know about heating air conditioning systems in commercial buildings is unbelievable. Just reflecting upon all the things that we learned over the years. So now the same technician that goes to a job site is taking his cell phone along, and the cell phone is giving him instructions. This is what you should check. This is what you should do. This is why you do it that way. This is the logic that we use to come up with this conclusion. He doesn't care. He just wants to get it done. And so the less skilled, less trained, less capable tech is able to handle a much tougher assignment that would have only gone to a much more experienced person in the old days. Well, as the experience level diminishes, the value of people who have had that experience increases. And AI is nothing without the know how that it needs to be effective, to be useful. And the shock for me is how quickly it learns and how much it learns from things that I didn't teach it. I don't know where it's getting all this stuff. I think it went and read the ASHRAE Handbook of Fundamentals, and I don't have to look. It's an encyclopedia of how you design HVAC systems. Don't need it anymore. Just like we don't need the Encyclopedia Britannica or World Book. Remember World Book?
I do. I used to have a whole set.
So, or Funkin' Wagnos that came from the grocery store. Oh boy, what a great day. Anyway, yeah, so the kids are coming up into this world, and it's a completely different world. And there's a transition that has to occur. And us old farts who know a thing or two about HVAC systems will be helping in that transition.
Well, as the landscape around energy, data, and sustainability continues to evolve, are you finding yourself having these AI conversations or with your clients, and are they beginning to kind of embrace the technology, or what are you seeing out there?
Well, I see businesses reported in the Wall Street Journal who tell their employees if they don't learn AI, they need to quit. I remember working in a company that said if you don't use email directly, not through your secretary, we're going to let you go. I got that email and I read it. No, I mean, so it's happening. That's what I see. It's happening, and it's necessary. And the other thing I see is a lot of really smart people who have never written a line of code in their life um, suddenly creating software packages that they that they didn't write. They instructed an AI utility to do the following, or how do I do the following, and then picking the right choice. And so I think that it's just a productivity accelerator is what it is. And so the things that you thought about 20 years ago and wished you could do but knew intuitively that you couldn't afford to hire the number of programmers necessary to make the vision fulfill the vision, it wouldn't be justified. Guess what? Now it's justified. So there's a lot of those things are floating back to the surface, and it's keeping my mind moving. See, and I'm doing what I enjoy. There we go.
It brought you back out of retirement.
That is true.
Well, Wade, thanks for sharing your vision. Energy Print's path from diagnostics to AI driven services is a great example of pragmatic innovation that delivers real ROI. For our listeners who want to learn more or connect, where should they go? EnergyPrint.com or LinkedIn?
EnergyPrint.com. Yeah. And, you know, if you go to contact us and send a note, trust me when I tell you it gets read, and it gets read right away. Within a couple of days, we'll be back to you. I don't mind if people email me directly. It's wade.smith@energyprint.com. I keep track of my emails now. They don't go to my secretary's inbox anymore. Email is email, or just connecting with us through the website. It's a great solution.
Perfect. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. If this episode sparked ideas on automating data workflows, scaling analytics, or treating AI as a strategic asset, let's connect. Visit Protelligent.com or reach out on LinkedIn. Until next time, ask better questions, build smarter systems, and stay on the edge of intelligence.